everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while and I'm gonna go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Yes, I have changed my hair. It's a whole lot easier to manage and I don't have to worry about using a comb or any hair products. Literally, I just pay to get it done once a month and they're completely permanent. So, girl is feeling fierce. But yeah, so if you were here for the previous video, that was when I made this shirt in a muslin. Today we're going to go ahead and make the final product. If you were here for the last video, you know that I made a muslin for a button-down shirt, and as you can see today, I went ahead and made that and it turned out really well. This has been one of those projects that I've always wanted to do since I was little, because it's always been really difficult to find a button-down shirt that would actually close over my chest because they are abnormally large. Well, I can't even say abnormally. They are just large because your body is perfect. You are not abnormal. But yeah, so it was just really nice to be able to have a shirt that buttoned down was able to close. I also found this really cool fabric. True story, this is actually a Halloween fabric, and I was just really intrigued and inspired by this fabric, and I was like, I want to make this into something. I don't know what, but it doesn't look Halloween. It just looks like fancy, so I made this shirt. What else? Yeah, it's just really nice, really lightweight. In Florida where I live, it's really hot and it doesn't get too cold, and if it does, it's like not even at freezing. So it's always nice to have something that's just covering parts of your bodies that are exposed than to wear like an actual like thermal or like a jacket or something that's really warm. We can't necessarily wear the same fabrics and stuff that other people can wear, like tweed and wool, without getting like overly hot. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I went ahead and constructed this entire garment, and yeah, let's do it. I love this fabric. It's satin and kind of spooky. I just freaking love it. Start by folding your fabric right sides together. Following the pattern instructions, you will lay out your pieces and cut them out. In my case, I only cut out pieces 1, 2, 10, 11, and 9 in this fabric. The rest of the pieces I cut out in black satin. Most of these pieces, excluding one of the back yokes and one of the collar pieces, are all going to have interfacing that you're going to go ahead and apply now. Starting with your front piece, make the breast dart by bringing the two dots together, pinning and sewing towards the small dot at the end of the breast dart. With the waist darts, bring your dots together to meet and sew from the top dot on the dart to the other one at the bottom. Repeat the waist dart method on the back piece as well. Flip your back piece right side up and pin the interface yoke piece number 3 to the top edge, right sides together, and stitch. Make sure you are matching your centers. Now we're going to pretend I did this right. Basically, you're going to do everything I'm doing on this interface piecing, except you're going to do it on the facing. Press under 5/8 of an inch on the shoulder edge of the yoke facing. Then trim that pressed edge to 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter. So here's me correcting the yoke and doing it the right way. Yay me! Fold your yoke piece down and pin the right side of the yoke facing to the wrong side of the back, matching your center notches and stitching all the way through all the thicknesses. Then press with your iron the yokes away from the shirt. Pin your front pieces to your back piece at the shoulder seam, right sides together, and stitch. Since I already messed up on this shoulder seam, I just skipped doing the slip stitch and I just made a regular stitching. And because it's on the inside, you're not going to be able to see it. Sew your front piece to your back piece, right sides together at the sides. Now listen carefully, because this is very tedious and very confusing. Sew around the edge of your garment with a long stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. Then turn up the raw edge at 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimeter, while also tucking the 1/4 of an inch raw edge under. So you're basically just rolling in that edge. It helped me to mark 5/8 of an inch on the right side of my fabric, so when I pressed it out and rolled it, I knew how far I was going. As you're going through each small section, you're going to pull on that thread to get rid of some of that ease and then sew that down. And I stopped, pulled out that 1/4 of an inch thread, pulled it some more for the next section until it all laid flat, and I just did maybe like 2-3 inch sections at a time. It's a lot of work. Or you can just get a ribbon and make it a bias tape and just put that around the edge of your shirt too. For the sleeve, ease stitch the cap of piece 9 between the small circles with 2 long stitches. Stitch the undersleeve to the upper sleeve at the underarm seam, and then finish your underarm seam however you see fit, either by overlocking, pinking, or whatever suits your fancy according to the pattern. Take your sleeve tab, piece 13, and fold it along the fold line. Stitch the raw edges, leaving open the end with the markings. After you trim your seam allowance, turn it right side out. I struggled with this and I ended up using a chopstick to help me before I lost my mind with flipping it inside out. So take your time. Press your piece and base the open end at 1/4 of an inch. Turn under that same edge at 1/4 and pin it to the wrong side of the sleeve at the marking. Stitch it down along the designated stitch line, which is actually a lot easier to do by hand than with your machine. I had the hardest time figuring out this drawing. I don't know why. It was just super confusing to me, but I eventually figured it out. So basically, you need to clip into the sleeve by 3/8 of an inch at the large dot. Fold that lower piece in by 1/4 of an inch, and then again by 3/8 and pin it down. Do not stitch. Repeat that same thing on the other side of that same sleeve. On the other side of that sleeve, you'll see 2 small dots that you're going to bring to the large dot, and you're going to also pin it down. With your cuff piece, piece 11, press up 5/8 of an inch on the long unnotched edge and trim the folded up piece to 3/8 of an inch. Fold it right sides together along that fold line and sew across the raw edges on the sides. Turn the cuff right side out and press for a crisp fold. Pin the cuff to the sleeve, matching the large dot to the seam. Then stitch the cuff to the sleeve, making sure not to catch the folded edge in your stitching. Trim the seam to 1/4 of an inch and press it and the seam allowance away from the sleeve. Cover your seam allowance with that folded cuff edge and then slip stitch it down using a thread and a needle. Match the side seams of the sleeve together and stitch all the way down until you get to that blue dot where we did that weird foldy thing for the cuff. With the sleeve opening, not the weird foldy thing, you're going to stitch along that folded edge across the top part and back down to the other folded edge, ending before the cuff. Flip the bodice wrong side out while keeping the sleeve right side out inserted into the armhole. Pin matching the top dot to the top shoulder seam, the small dot to the front dot, the back dot to the seam yoke, and the sleeve seam to the underarm seam. You're also going to pull on your strings that we made previously on the cap of your sleeve to get rid of some of that fullness, to make sure that the sleeve fits into that armhole. Then you're going to sew within that armhole once within the seam allowance, and then you're going to go in a little bit more at 1/4 of an inch away from the edge and sew again. Trim your seam and press your seam allowance flat towards the sleeve. Taking your very long front band, press under 5/8 of an inch on the unnotched edge and trim it to 3/8 of an inch. Fold the lower part of the band right sides together, keeping the first fold intact along the fold line. Slip stitch the lower end and trim the seam. Fold the rest of the band along the fold line and press. Pin the band right sides together to the front of the shirt, matching your notches. And it was around this time that I noticed I forgot to elongate the band when I was altering the shirt. So make sure you always check the facing bands and linings of your piece to make sure they fit. To fix this, I just matched the bottom and trimmed the extra off the neckline. If you didn't alter this, you should have no problem and completely ignore this step. Stitch across the bottom of the lower band and trim the seam. Press your seam allowance towards the band and cover it with the folded band edge that you'll turn right side out. Slip stitch the band and repeat on the other side. Stay stitch around the neck, and speaking of, come to find out, upon further research, my collar band won't fit. I tried on my shirt and realized that it's cutting into my neck, which I ended up rounding off, as you can see here. This extra clipping made my collar too short. I'm still going to show you how to do it, it's just I'm not going to have a collar like that. Press under 5/8 of an inch on the single notched rounded edge of the collar band, piece number 7. Trim it to 3/8 of an inch. Pin the other non-interface band to the collar, matching notches, and stitch along the upper front edges, keeping that fold. Trim the seam allowance and turn it right side out and press. Pin collar band to the neck edge, matching notches and centers, but keeping that folded edge out of the way. Trim seam allowance and press towards band. Folding the seam inside, slip stitch that folded edge over the seam and you're done. But I chose to be lazy and trusted my favorite friend, bias tape. I pinned the tape right sides together and leaving around 1/2 of an inch off the edge and stitched. I folded the tape over the neck edge, as you see here, and folded the end of the tape to encompass the corner. I then stitched all through the thicknesses. Lastly, I finished by stitching all the buttonholes using my trusty button maker that I used. These are my buttons here. They're ones without holes and they're just shiny, and I thought they'd be really cute in reflection with like the satin ones instead of having like a button with like lots of holes in it. So I used my button to make buttonholes like this.
I used my button to make buttonholes like this. And then I added the buttons to the markings according to the pattern.
And that's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. I took a lot longer than I expected, but it wasn't 3 months. It was actually 3 weeks, so it's not that bad, I have to say. If there was anything that was unclear that you have any questions about, if you make this and find you get stuck, you can feel free to go ahead and comment down below. I check as many messages as possible, or if not, you can always message me or message me on Instagram or something like that. All the tags of my social media will be underneath. I think I only have one thing, and that's Instagram. I don't tweet. I get obsessed. I follow everybody. I get angry about everything, so I can't do Twitter. But yeah, if you have any comments or questions, leave them below. If you make this, please do tag me on Instagram under So Maniacal. I will be checking and liking and just giving you all the love in the world if you make this. Like, I love to see people create things and have passion about stuff. It's awesome. If you didn't see the last video, I suggest you go check that out too, because we played around with different types of FBAs and I found it really fun and informational. It was my first time doing it, and I think it came out pretty good. If you haven't already, please make sure that you like and subscribe if you're new. And if you're new, welcome. My name is Jacqueline, and I am an amateur sewist who just likes to sew things, and I have way too many patterns that's crowding my room. If you could see it, it's ridiculous. Every orifice has a pattern. So yeah, I'm just going through all the commercial patterns that I have for plus size people. Yeah, I will see you folks next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye.